Many of those who immigrated to Canada from Somalia set down roots here in Ontario. And as that community has expanded, the need for a space to call their own has also grown. Vicky Mochama is TBO.org's diversity journalist, and she joins us now on efforts underway to make that happen. Hello, hello.
Hi.
All right, so talk to me a little bit about the mission for the Somali Center for Culture and Recreation.
The mission is to provide a multi-generational space for Somali Canadians somewhere in the city of Toronto. And it's an initiative being led by about 11 young Somali professionals who are putting together, the initial package, the initial stages of coming up with a community and recreation center that serves their community. And what they're really looking at in this initial phase is where could it possibly be, and what are the gaps that are there already in the city that this community center could fill.
Talk to me a little bit about, there's this interesting story that includes, I know it's 2023, but this sort of call to action has sort of been there since Bill Davis was alive, early conversations when he was premier. Talk to me a little bit the history behind sort of getting a center up and running.
So there's been different iterations of the idea of a community center for Somalis since Somalis have been here. What they've learned or what they've shared in their studies is that a number of ethnic communities have come together to put together community centers like this, and Somalis wouldn't be the first. So the group tells me that the Somali Center for Community and Recreation actually has its tendrils going as far back as 1983, going as far back as Bill Davis when they asked. But at that time and subsequent times, there hasn't necessarily been continued activism around the idea of a community center, or they haven't necessarily been able to pull together the resources. But now they're saying not only are the conditions right politically in terms of policy, but also that they have the right team to do it.
All right, let's talk about sort of the gaps in community spaces, specifically Somali people in Etobicoke and Scarborough. I have one of my friends, he's East African, and we always make comment when we are at sort of these de facto community centers that have been created because there have been no spaces, and those are sort of your local coffee shops, those are your mosques. What are the community gaps in those specific areas when we talk about Etobicoke and Scarborough?
What was interesting to me when I read this group's report that they put out is how many spaces there are in the city. But those city spaces are all really downtown. They're mostly not located in places in Toronto where Somalis live, which tend to be concentrated around neighborhoods like Etobicoke and Scarborough. They tend to be on the outer boroughs of the city. And so what the report found was that in terms of servicing these communities where they live, there's huge gaps in terms of critical infrastructure, and that includes things like community centers. When you go to a neighborhood like Rexdale or to the intersection around Islington and Dixon, which is Kingsway, the Westway Village, you find that there are these spaces. I went to a Tim Hortons where, young men were, doing homework together, where, young people were gathering to just kind of meet before going to their next destination. You saw old men sitting around coffee shops talking about politics from back home, or even just meeting up with people who are from out of town. So in a way, we already have these spaces. They're just corporate spaces. They're not city spaces. And so that's what this group is really trying to break into, to ensure that there are spaces where communities can gather, where they can do their essential cultural practices, but also where they can do the things that anybody needs to do, which is meet up with one another, convene, and be a community together.
All right, well, let's talk about an example of a truly public place, a city space. The Tamil Community Center in East Scarborough is sort of a good model to look at. Explain sort of, this is years of advocacy that has taken place to get to where they are. The center isn't built yet, but tell me about how this is a good model for other community centers to be built, and when we talk about culturally important ones.
Yeah, so what the Tamil community was able to pull together is a really interesting model for what the Somali Center for Culture and Recreation could be, which is that it required not just community activism, of which there has been many decades of that around the idea of creating this space, but they've also pulled together support from the city government, which is giving them a very favorable deal on land. But then they've also pulled together support from provincial and federal governments. And so that's what the report from the Somali Center for Culture and Recreation found, was that most community centers after the 1980s and 90s were built in this way with multiple partners coming in, especially federal, provincial, and municipal governments coming to support these kinds of spaces. And so that's what they're looking for, is the kinds of models that have worked and do work, but it is a long road.
And we talk about sort of the finances behind that. Of course, the land that community center will be on is millions of dollars, but is only being leased back to them for about, I think it's $1.
$1, yes.
$1, okay. In terms of the Somali Center for Culture and Recreation, is there similar commitments, or do we know if there's any levels of government who are taking part?
There's a couple ways in which they're engaging with government involvement. And so, for example, Toronto City Council passed a motion approving the idea of creating a city-backed Somali cultural center of some kind. And they've empowered city staff to work with this group on finding a location and building out what kind of services it could have. And so that's one way they've gotten official government involvement. But there's still work to do on getting the province involved, on getting the federal government involved, and on getting any other kinds of partners involved. So it's a really long road for the SCCR, as the group is known. The challenge that they have is pulling together all these disparate supporters and funders in time. And time is really the thing that they're racing against. As we've seen with other community centers, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of focus to make sure that this happens for your community.
What did you hear when talking to people in Northwest Toronto about the project itself?
What was really interesting when I, was walking around the neighborhood of the intersection of Islington and Dixon was, many people hadn't heard of the idea yet, and they were excited about it. I talked to a couple students who were saying the only spaces that they really have to go are the library. And while that's great, it doesn't provide everything that they need. They want athletic services. They want spaces where they can just do homework and talk out loud. They want spaces where they can just hang out, places where they can get coffee and meet up with other people from other schools. And the library serves many functions, but it doesn't serve all that. I also heard from community members who said that they were looking for spaces where they could do anything. In this city, it can be very expensive to host an event, to pull together your community. And in communities that have been underserved, like the Somali community, those spaces are really, really crucial. But I did also hear from community members some doubt about whether or not it would happen, because they felt that perhaps by calling it a Somali community center, that excluded so many other racialized communities from participating and thus supporting them. But overall, people felt that Somali community had been such an important part of Toronto that they deserved a space of their own.
I don't know if you know the answer to this question, just like as you mentioned with some of the people you spoke to, but if all goes well, when can the community expect to be able to gather for services and programs in their new space?
Like I said, it's a bit of a race against time, because there are, financial commitments that have to be made at the government level, which is a long process. But the group is really ambitious, and they're hoping to have something more solid in place by 2027. So that's 4 years from now. And as we've seen with many other community centers, it takes anywhere from 10 to 18 years to build a community center. For example, the recently opened Chinese Cultural Community Center took 18 years from inception to opening. And so it's an ambitious idea, but as the group is saying, it's maybe an idea whose time has come.
A race to get the shovels in the ground.
Yeah.
Vicki, thank you so much. Really great stuff. Really appreciate you joining us on the program.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.